Gravity Falls was a show that I grew up watching and I loved it as a kid. It was literally like all I watched for like 6 months. So the Mystery Shack is the biggest part of Gravity Falls, or the thing that most people remember when you say it. That or I'm not going to spoil the show. If you haven't watched it, please watch it because it is amazing. Frankly, it is amazing unless you're old and you're grumpy. Anyways, before I ramble on any longer, today we're building the Mystery Shack. One thing to mention here is the shape of the base. Trying to get the shape of the Mystery Shack right was a little difficult because it's on a weird angle. It isn't like a perfect triangle. I forgot the name of the triangle. I was terrible at maths and geometry, all of it basically. But you know, it's a weirdly shaped triangle, especially with the roof and especially with everything else. So trying to make it look like it was the actual design from the show took a little bit of work, and I think eventually I did get a design that I really liked once I swapped around a bunch of the colours. One thing I also would like to mention is the front door. It's a lot bigger than other doors that you'd see in Minecraft, and it's going to be pretty hard to push, I'm just saying. But the reason I did this is because the base, to get the shape that I wanted, I had to make it a lot bigger than a regular cabin that you'd see in Minecraft, and that meant that the door had to be enlarged to make it look like it was the one from the show. So it was a bit of a complication there, but it did turn out really nicely, and I really love how that door design came into play. And later on it gets a little taller, but it looks really nice both ways, and it looks really close to the show. And actually, just going to mention it here, this base did in the end look really close to the show, and I was actually shocked at how well I actually managed to transcribe it. Like this thing's like, I thought it was going to be really difficult, and it wasn't like it wasn't. You know, it was a difficult base to make, but I was able to transcribe most of the details fairly easily. It was mainly the shape of the base and trying to get everything the right sizes that was the difficult part. Now, one thing I'd also like to mention is the sign on the side of the base. It went through so many variations. I don't think there was a thing that I worked on more than the big signs, the Mystery Shack signs on the side of the base. I mean, it's the thing that people remember about Mystery Shack, you know, barring the shape, obviously. But basically, you've got these signs, but I really didn't know how to do the lettering on them. The shack was pretty easy. I had to make the sign a little bigger to fit it all on, but I managed to get the word shack pretty quickly, especially with the S falling down, because that looked really cool. But the mystery, fitting that on the sign above, oh my days, that was one of the most difficult things I've had to do in building in a very long time. But I did get something that looks really cool in the end. Also, I should probably mention that the one you're looking at right now isn't the one you see at the end. Here is the logo you see at the end. What I did in the end was I got the word mystery and I had to cramp it all together, trying to shorten and squeeze the letters in as much as possible. So where I could, I did. And what I did was I slightly changed the color on each letter so that it looked like there was a little bit of space in between each one. It was very difficult to come up with this design. Not going to lie, it's probably one of the hardest things I've had to design in a while. But I really loved creating that in the end. And I was so happy when that was finished. I was like, yes, you can read this as Mystery Hack S. Now, what else I had to do in the base was, now I was going on to the parts where it was like details that I wanted to just add into the base and smaller things that you see. Now, one thing that I had to do, and you have to do this a lot when you're making a build that's from a TV show or whatever, is you have to shrink details down. So I obviously couldn't do a big question mark above the house there because that would look a little confusing, especially since it's only like one of those wind north, south, east, west things. I can't remember what they're named, but you know, there's usually a question mark on top of there with water around it, and it's like a massive bit in the show. It's like even in the intro and things. It's really cool, but I couldn't actually add that in, so I had to just use chains, and especially with the weird steam pipe thing there, which I still don't know what that is, but it's just one big long set of netherite walls there, but it gives off the same effect, and from afar it gives off the idea that I wanted it to. So that's really cool. Now, I know you're shocked, right? The whole base was actually a facade. It's actually only half of it's been done so far, but now we're going to work on the other side. Now, working on this side of the base while I was doing the video, while I was just building it, was a little difficult because there's literally like no images of it. I had to look at some screenshots from the show and all sorts to try and find this side of the build or the shack, because you know, it's not really shown off. It's kind of the more bland side of it, and I understand why they do that. I mean, like, why would you show off the more bland side? But There were some parts in the show where this side of the shack was shown, so I had to copy it from there. I even found like a Lego set someone made, and I was like, and then a 3D model on Blender, and I was like, okay, here are the things that I'm gonna have to copy it off from. But yeah, it worked out. It worked out really well, and I managed to use those sources to get this side of the base. And to be fair, I didn't really need to, I guess, because there's only like 2 or 3 things that are added in, like a little window on the back right, I can't remember, back left side of the base, and it looked pretty, it was alright. It was like I added in the design. It was a pretty simple design, so there's not really much to write home about with this one. I did create a cool cooler design using, and I also used like a cool flattened umbrella, because it's hard to make the umbrella like it's sticking outward, so I just made the umbrella look like it was flattened. So that's what I mimicked there, and I think that looked pretty cool. And apart from the door, there's not much else to speak about on this side. One thing I did do later on was I added in a like moss all over the base, and usually you'd use moss blocks and leaves for that to create that like bright azalea color, but because it was all set in like a spruce forest in the show, I don't know what you'd call a pine forest. Yeah, pine. It was like pine trees in the show. So what I did with this one instead is I used green terracotta and with birch leaves and pine trees leaves. I can't remember the names. I keep on forgetting names in these videos, and it makes me look so stupid. It's not like I am not. But anyways, I created that cool design. It gave off the dark moss that you see in the show, and I really love that design there. I've actually used it in the past on a couple bases, usually on boats, because it mixes with spruce really well. There we go, spruce. It mixes with spruce wood really well, that design, so I use it on a lot of bases. But this one here, it especially works well because it's exactly what you see in the show. And one thing I haven't talked about is the exterior of the base, the texture I used on it. So I used just regular oak, like stripped oak log, because that's the closest you get to the show. But in the show there were also like pinky. It's like very, very tiny, but there are little pinky parts on the wood. So what I did with that is I added in some granite, and I added in some jungle logs to do that transition, and it added a little depth and a little texture to something that would have otherwise been very bland. So I'm really happy with how that design came out too. And also the trees there looked really, really nice, and I'm just, honestly, this base turned out brilliant, and I'm so happy with it. Wow, that's the mystery shack done, and it is looking fantasy-tastic if you ask me. I genuinely love this thing so much. I mean, I didn't create any, I designed the details I used in it, and some things I had to get a little creative. As you can see here, there's no question mark on top, it's just a bunch of chains, but I think from afar it looks good. And with this is probably the hardest bit that I had to design, the mystery bit. I think I got it so it looked decent enough. It isn't as like it is a little different, and the sign is a little bigger. It is a little bigger, I'll give it that, than it is usually in the show. But I think it did look really cool, and I really loved how this base came out. Actually, one thing I wanted to do when I was designing it, and I haven't managed to do it yet, was I wanted to see what it looked like at night, because I did put a lot of lights in the base, and you often see the thing at night in the show, so I wanted to see what it would look like. So maybe I'll set it now and see. Yeah, I really love that. That's really cool. For the thumbnail, I might need to do some trees and things around here, but you get the idea. This is really nice and really beautiful. And I really love using these fog lights for windows, especially in the show, because it's like all the windows are constantly really bright from the inside, because it's like a cartoon and everything. But I really love the style of this, and I really love how that's all lit up. I love the S. And set day. I love the S here. That was so fun to do. That was so cool. Just like, I was so worried that wouldn't look good, but the S looked really good, and I got the mystery shack thing going on here. Anyways, that was really cool. That was a really fun build to make. If you want to see future builds or future ideas for builds, then put them in the comments below. If you want to see me build anything else from a TV show, put in the comments below. I'll check it out. I'll think about it. If I like the show, I might just do it. So thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.